welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I have a couple of fun crafts for you today. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we'll be working on some rustic farmhouse fall home decor crafts. So let's get started with project number 1. So for this project, these are a few things we're going to start out with, okay? So I found this candle holder at Dollar Tree. It was the shorter one, so it's $3. And then these are larger size tumbling tower block pieces for $3. This is the first time our Dollar Tree got them. I was buying them at Walmart for $7, so that's a nice price difference. And then I wanted a really shallow tin can. I didn't have any, but I found one at a thrift store for a couple dollars. Off camera, I'm just going to do an initial cover of spray paint around it to kind of cover the dark colors. And then I'll bring in Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color drop cloth. I'll paint the candle pillar as well as the tin and then the blocks and all that. So for my blocks, I'm not sure how many I need. And I'm not sure, you can see the two on the top. I've got them marked at different slants. I'm not sure what kind of slant I'm going to need. So I'll cut them both at whatever slant I think, because I want my tin to sit on top of this at a slant like that. So I'll cut them both and then I'll share with you which one I actually use. So for this pillar, I'm going to use the bottom and make it the top because the bottom actually has a deeper recess to fit those tumbling tower block pieces. I'm going to use some floral foam here from Dollar Tree. I'm going to set that aside. Now I cut a circle pattern 13.5 inches in diameter, and I'm using this coat that I found at Goodwill. It wasn't in very good shape, but it's that kind of that like boucle type fabric, and it's cheaper than going to like, you know, a fabric store. So I'm going to cut the circle off camera out of that. And then for the stem, this is the collar. I cut it in half, and I'm going to just roll one piece up. Now, I could use the little snaps at the top that are already on there, and I almost did, but I'm going to change that. But that's going to make the cutest freaking stem. And then I'm going to use these I got from Walmart. It was like $4 or $5, something like that. You get a ton of 7 sets of snaps in it. Comes with the tools. It's very easy. I'll show you how to do it in case you want to do it yourself and you're using actual fabric and not a coat that you cut up that has a collar. All right, so in the side of the bottom of that, you know, pillar, that P is like from a decor piece from Dollar Tree. It's like the word hope with beads in it. I'm laying that there, a Jenga piece on the bottom, a piece of a, you know, paint stick, and then the Jenga piece that's going to give me my slant was the one that was like half cut off at a diagonal. And so I'm just getting kind of these pieces glued into place, not gluing it yet into the candlestick, but just getting these pieces glued. All right, and then I'm going to come in with the drop cloth. I'm going to start painting my tin while that glue sets up, because the glue is like a sister or brother. I don't want to be one-sided, of E6000, but what I love about it is it takes 10 minutes to cure so you can work with it, and then 24 hours to fully dry, whereas the E6000, you can't touch it for 24 hours, but this one, love it. It's perfect. All right, painting things up. Now, on the candlestick, it's dusty. It's got lumps. It's got bumps from the paint and the distressing and everything that's already there. And I left that on there for a reason. So if you want yours smooth, I would sand that off before you paint, but I left it so that as I sand here, it's going to have some chippy spots. Like right here, you're going to see a great big piece just fall right off. It's beautiful, and I want that chipping all over the place because I love me some good chippy, right? So once I'm done sanding, I'm going to take this Dixie Belle Best Dang Wax in clear, and I'm going to wax it all up, because when you have stuff that chips like this, if you don't seal it, it's going to keep chipping, which would be okay, but I'm going to leave it like it is because it's totally a perfect chippy at this point, right? So just kind of put that on there and let it set for a little bit. It takes 24 hours to cure, but you can work with it for a little while. And we'll let it set while we're making our pumpkin here in a minute. And since the wax is already out, I'll just go ahead and kind of wax up around the tin as well. Don't know if I needed it, but why not? The wax was there. I'm kind of in a groove here, right? And in the bottom, there's spots where I didn't paint because that's where I'll be gluing. Now I'm going to glue that whole ensemble in the bottom. It's 10 minutes past. It's set up. And then what I'm doing is cutting out a little pattern to fit on the back side of it. And I'll cut 2 pieces out of that floral foam. I'll layer them one on top of the other. You don't see me do it, but I'll show you. But what I want to do is put foam here because it's kind of going to be underneath the tin, but I want some flowers to come out of that so that you don't see that wooden stuff there. So cutting those pieces out and then gluing them into the pot. You'll see what I mean when I show you. There, or into the bottom of the thingy, not the pot. And then I'm going to glue my pan on top. I've got the word pot in my brain. Pan on top at the points where it's going to touch. And I'm looking kind of underneath to make sure it's centered and everything on the candle pillar, and we're setting that aside and we're going to our pumpkin. I'm going to use an upholstery needle because it has a big eye so that this crochet thread, and you get these at Walmart, will fit through the opening of that eye. I will have a link on my blog to how kind of basic sewing stitches if you need this to be slowed down. You're going to put a knot in one end of your crochet thread, and from the wrong side you're going to pull your needle all the way through till you touch that knot. And you're going to turn your needle in the other direction and you're going to pull it right back through. About a 1/2 inch away, put your needle in. All right, you're going to pull that through. And then about a 1/2 inch away, turn your needle back around and pull it back through again. Again, a 1/2 inch away, pull it through. And then you've got a couple stitches here, and you could do this all the way around, or we can take a quicker route, which is what we're going to do right here. So our needle needs to come back through. So we're going to come back through and just poke it out a little bit. And then we're going to pleat our fabric onto the needle, kind of holding our needle in place, so to speak. And you're going to pleat it as many times as you want and then pull your thread through. And then we just made a bunch of stitches all in one stitch. So you can do that all the way around and it's a lot quicker. So I'm going to do that all the way around and kind of meet you back here where I'm getting close. You're going to do it till you get right close to the knot, 1/2 inch or so away. Of course, bring your needle through and then you're going to tug on both threads so it helps gather that open end of your fabric, okay? And then you're just going to start stuffing your pumpkin. I'm going to stuff mostly off camera, but grab some stuffing and stuff it nice and full. And then once you got it as full as you want it, you're going to pull on both your strings. And when you pull on them, it closes your hole a little bit more. You want it just open enough kind of for your stem, right? And then go ahead and take both of those strings and tie a few knots and then cut off the excess. I always like to cut my tails long because my brain's like, that knot's going to slide out even though it won't. So I cut the tails long and tuck them inside. Now you're going to take more crochet string, nice and long, and you're going to take the tails together and tie a great big knot. We're going to make some sections in our pumpkin. And you're going to take your needle down through the center of that opening, out the bottom, pull it till your knot hits, and then wrap it around your pumpkin, back through the center, out the bottom. Try not to come out the same hole. Just come in a nice little closed area diameter. Pull it through and pull it tight so you get it indent. All right, and then wrap it around again, straight across, down through the center. I'm off camera a second. I'll come back through. There you go. Pull it out. Again, not through the same hole. Indent it. Pull it tight. And then come across, 4 inches or so, wrap it around, back through the center and out the bottom, pull it tight so it indents, and again, wrap it around through the center, out the bottom, and now we've got some sections there, and you're just going to continue that all the way around till you have 6 sections. Now, when you do your last section here, you're going to come out the bottom. So you're going to have to kind of just go across and make a little stitch to come back out through the top, like that. And then you're going to grab one of your strings there that you see or something like that and, knot it to close it off and cut off your excess. All right, perfect. There's our cute little sectioned pumpkin. All right, now we're going to take the collar here. So I could use these color snaps, but I decide I'm going to switch to these other colors. So I'm going to take the other side, because I'll leave that piece. I can use it for something later. Grab the couple of little things I need. We're just doing the top half of the snap. We're not putting the snap on the other side. And then the long little post and that little off-colored hazy silver thing. I'm taking my little, seam ripper, making a couple holes here, and then I'm putting a needle in there because it's hard to see where my hole was with that type of fabric. All right? So for just doing the top part of the snap, you need the snap and the little liner. So put the snap on the bottom first. The little liner will go on top, and then that little thing you're going to set inside there, and then put your thing there and hammer it in. So put your thing there and your thing there and hammer it in. Instructions are on the back of the thing. But you can see how all the things come together really easily. And it's really easy on the instructions. And then you've got the top half of your snaps. Just like that. I just kind of wanted to show you, and all the tools are there. And then I'm going to cut off the end that has like the other side of the snaps because I don't need it. And then I'm going to glue my little piece together since it's like a little collar piece. Glue all the ends together. Add some on that one cut end that's not the snap end. And then just kind of roll and glue as I go. making it a loose enough roll that it's going to fit directly all inside of the opening that I have. You can make it looser or tighter depending how big your opening is. And then I'm going to pin it here till the glue sets up a little bit. Takes about a minute for Fabri-Tac glue to set up. Just pin it here for a minute. Make sure it fits in my hole. Now I'm going to glue and sew mine. You can just glue it or just sew it. But since I'm doing both, I'm putting my needle inside underneath first with the fabric there so it's ready to go. I'll glue it in here. Like I said, you could just glue. It works perfectly fine, but I like to glue and sew. There it is, just all glued. And of course, I rolled the stem the right width. You know, I kind of checked how wide I needed it to be so that there's nothing stuffing or anything showing out the center of that pumpkin. And then with my needle and thread that's ready to go, I'll just kind of go through the pumpkin and the stem all the way around, making like 1 inch long stitches just for that second security. But if you use ample glue, it'll be just fine. And then off camera when I'm done, I'll just, knot it off and, cut the tails off, etc., etc. So that makes our pumpkin done. We'll set it aside. And yes, I'll take those pins out. And we're going to look at our base here. Now, remember, I put styrofoam there at the arrow. And then off camera, I went ahead and put 2 layers of styrofoam in here. I just cut it up so that it fits. And we've got lots of room for our floral. We're going to be using mostly all from Dollar Tree. I'm going to go in the colors of kind of blues and creams with that little bit of touch of orange. I'm going to use these from Dollar Tree, whatever, floral you want. I'm going to use some velvet pumpkins of the cream and the blue and start off with some Excelsior. And I already have a few pieces placed, and the Excelsior looks funny where it's glued because when I do this, so I have some underneath there, a little bit on top. You can see these. I'll add some Excelsior down underneath, just a little bit of things. All right, because when I go to recreate this, I always tell you I'm not a floral arranger. So I have to lay it all down. And if you look to the right and left, there's clumps of piles of stuff. I lay it down, take a picture, take it all off, and then we recreate it. And I'll be taking that's where we're at now. And I'll be taking my pumpkin on and off as I add flowers. These little flowers are also from Dollar Tree. As I add the flowers, I add the leaves, making sure that it looks good with the pumpkin laying on top. And what we're going to do is kind of create a tilted look with the floral because obviously our tin is tilted, right? But what I mean by that is our line is really going to be long, coming from the top angle down under the pumpkin to the bottom angle. We want this nice, long, lean look tilted. All right. So I'm adding in more floral. I'm adding in more Excelsior, and my pumpkin's going to need more tilted. So I'm adding in more cotton. We don't want our pumpkin, as we're creating this long, lean look and we're adding in these cute velvet pumpkins and stuff, we don't want our pumpkin to not be the center of attention. We just want the floral to be underneath it, looking pretty and creating our beautiful line, from one top to the other bottom, adding in our pumpkins, adding in our Excelsior. And no, this isn't my idea. I saw a lot of these inspirations off of Pinterest, so thank you to whoever created this in the first place. It's just a really fabulous idea. In fact, I'll add a picture right here that was my original inspiration. I forgot to do it at the front, so this is what caught my eye, and now this is what we're lindifying right up. Now, without rude interruption, let's get back to where we were. Again, adding my blue layers along the bottom, my creams up above, because otherwise the blue gets too prevalent. And like I said, we don't want to take our center off of the pumpkin. All right? And so I'm choosing pieces that are really long. And as you can see, I'm kind of bending them down on the bottom, bending them upward a little on the top to give us that long, lean line. All right? And just add your flowers how you want it. The Excelsior really fills in. I like my Excelsior kind of look long and stringy coming out. I've got Excelsior down around that little slit in the bottom underneath the pan where our little, tumbling tower blocks were, of course. Already got that put in there. I will have to add more cotton at the top again because still I feel like it needs to be higher. And I left the spot open here. I'm using some of this polka dot ribbon and some raffia. The polka dot ribbon came from Hobby Lobby, and some raffia. I already tied it together with some jute twine, and then I'm just twisting a wire through that twine so it gives us something to hook into our foam with here. I wanted the bow to blend in and not be really, really jihugic. I wanted tiny little bows, tiny little loops, right? And here I am adding more cotton fluff to get my pumpkin higher. And I think that bow does its thing with just not being too prevalent. Adding more of the fluff, like I said, getting my pumpkin glued on top, ample glue. And then that makes this project complete. We'll take a look at the results at the end of the video. Let's move on to project number 2. For this project, this is my inspiration from Pinterest. I thought it was really cute because it wasn't the normal carameled apple, but rather a caramel pumpkin. And of course, I lindified it. So a couple of pumpkins from Dollar Tree, whatever color or size you want. And then you could use one of these, candle holders from Dollar Tree. I believe the original probably had one like it, but I'm going to kind of make my own. I have this little spool I found at a thrift store, and this is a piece of spindle I cut apart, and then I will just do the top and the bottom with a cute wood slice, make it a little bit more rustic. Here's what this one will look like. Fun, different, but could still go together, of course. And then these are some fake nuts I got off Etsy. I'll have a link in my description box for you. You're going to need some Mod Podge, matte or gloss, whatever you prefer. And I'm going to use this mica powder. It's like a mineral type pigment, and you can use it in, candle making, soap making, mixed media crafts, that kind of thing. If you want to use a food coloring, in order to use it like in an epoxy like I'm going to be using, it needs to be oil-based so that it mixes. And this is the epoxy I'm going to use. It's, the part 1, part 2 that you mix together and pour on. And then I'm going to use some wax paper. I'll be using a wood dowel and then some craft paper that I'll use later to print some labels on. We'll bring in a little bit more crafty stuff down the line. First thing I want to do is take this quick hold glue and get my holders together. I'm going to do like the bottom wood slice on both of these first, let it set about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll add the top wood slice. Kind of have to go in stages with this glue, but that's perfectly wonderful because we have other things to do like cutting our wood dowel in half. Perfect. And then we're going to take the tops out of our pumpkins, save those for some other time. And if you don't want to use pumpkins, you can totally use apples. No big deal. And then I'm going to put my wood dowels down into our pumpkin. I'm not worried about trying to glue them in because glue melts the styrofoam anyway, but the epoxy we're going to be using will cement those wood dowels in just perfectly wonderful. Now what I want to do is add the fake nuts. So on this first one, I did it kind of thick, but not really thick with the Mod Podge. And then I noticed there were a lot more where there's some areas really kind of thin, like right in here. I had to go in for like a second coat. But this one, painted it way thicker, didn't have to go in for a second coat. There might have been 1 or 2 tiny little spots, but this worked much better, thicker, and then, putting your nuts on it. And you can put them on as thick as you want. Of course, I did them really thick. I didn't put any on the bottom because we want our bottom nice and flat. And then, of course, I left the top open so you could see it was a pumpkin. So about the sides, about 3/4 of the pumpkin. All right, now those are setting. I'm going to go ahead and add the wood slices to the top of our holders here. And then we'll let those set aside and we'll move on to something else. Moving it very gingerly off of the mat until it sets up about 10 minutes. Now, as you can see on my craft paper, I've already printed my designs. You'll have a PDF and a PNG. If you look to the left here, you have one design with the pumpkin. The middle one is like a caramel pumpkin. I don't know how I found that one. And in the bottom one, I made multiple designs of each one that you'll print off either in your PDF or PNG format, okay? And then I'm printing mine, or I did print it on double-sided paper so the back looks all nice and finished off. And I'm just cutting my tags into a tag shape. Just like that. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm just going to sew on both of my tags. I'm going to sew like a double border all the way around. I'm just sewing on it like it's regular fabric. No special thread or special needle or anything. You can add that touch if you want, or you can make like little dash lines with the Sharpie marker, or there are like acrylic stamps you can get out there that looks like, sewing stitches, however you want to do it. And then of course I went around the edges with the open blade of my scissors to kind of roughen it up, and now I'm punching a hole with a crocodile. I've decided I want to use little eyelets in them. You don't really see them, so you don't need them, but I did it. All right, and then I'm going to take some Distress Oxide ink in Walnut Stain and kind of ink up my little tags. Now, if you want, you could like scrunch your tags up and make them even more, you know, rustic looking. And I'm kind of inking around so that they, you know, the words are highlighted, you know, so no inking through the word area. Okay, and now for the fun part. I've got 2 separate cups, one for A and B, and then 1 big cup to mix them both in. And in my mica powder, I chose the caramel brown. I thought caramel pumpkin, caramel brown. Anyway, so here I am pouring the A. I ended up adding more in my mix, which I wasn't sure was going to work, but it worked fine. And I also wasn't sure if this was even going to mix. See the B sitting up there? It's a really dark orange because this I bought in like 2007, but it had never been opened. So I'm like, okay, it might still work. And it did, and that's okay. And I only added about this much, probably a 1/16 of the mica powder. That was still too much because this mica powder is so intense. So by adding more mixture, because I didn't think I had enough anyway, lightened it up. And then you have to mix very vigorously for about 2 minutes, making sure you scrape along the side as if you're, you know, mixing frosting. And then 2 minutes is up, you start pouring. And even though it looks really dark here, it actually lightens up as it cools. But I kind of did the top on this one first, and then I'm going along the sides. And then on this one, I'm like, no, because I want to make sure I get the nuts covered good. So I started on the side and then went to the top. The other way I had to, you know, I think I used like a little bit more of the epoxy by going from the top to the bottom, where this way on the side it covered a little bit better throughout all the nuts. And I'm just wanting to add a little bit more in here and in the top because I want like that little pool of caramel, so to speak, up at the top by the stick. And then it's pretty runny right now. So what I did is I'd wait for about the next half hour, about every 5 minutes, I'd come in and then kind of scoop off the runny mixture. And then as it starts to thicken, you can shape it a little bit at the bottom so it looks like that runoff like caramel does, you know, at the bottom of an apple. So here's what it looks like. I put it on wax paper thinking I could peel the wax paper off, but nope, that epoxy stuck to it, and that's okay. This one I already cut. We'll just glue it to it. It's not going to come off of anything because, like I said, that epoxy is stuck to that wax paper. So I'm just kind of cutting around it, the shape. I'm putting it on the top of my holder here to see how it's fitting. And you can see like right there, there's a little bit overhang. So I'd go back and forth, cut a little bit off, trim it. But I just wanted that little puddle down below the pumpkin. You know, so it kind of really looks like caramel ran down our pumpkin. All right, and then my stick is just way too light, so I'm just taking some of my ink there, same I used on the tag, inking both of my sticks up, add a little color. Now I'm going to bring in these supplies, a little orange plaid from Hobby Lobby. I tied 2 into a bow here already, so those are ready to go. And then a couple of twine bows. And then I've got this stuff from Dollar Tree, burlap, I don't know what you call it, burlap something or other. 2 little pieces tied into a knot, couple of rusty stars, and then a couple of putka pods. I'll leave a link down below to Etsy where I get that, and then some Excelsior here and a couple of little buttons that I already added twine in the middle, and a couple of little bulb safety pins or bulb pins. I'm going to use this mixture, which is cinnamon and salt, and then some multi-spray adhesive. And what I want to do is, since I'm not going to put anything up here, the original had the tag and everything up there, but I'm going to reverse it. So I want something at the top. So I'm spraying just a little bit on the stick and then adding the salt and the cinnamon mixture and the glitters also in it. And then just a little bit at the top of the pumpkin so it gives it something and it's not just plain, but not too much. Because like I said, all my design is going to be at the bottom, but I didn't want the top just to have nothing and look plain, right? But I like how it turned out. And then I do take some of this mixture and put it just a tiny bit at the bottom on some of our elements so it all comes together. Here's Excelsior, like I said earlier I was using. I got it for, $1 at a garage sale, and now I have to buy some more. Wish there was a garage sale, but nope, I'll have to pay full price. So I'm gluing a little bit to the bottom of that spool or spindle wood slice. I'm adding the bow through the safety pin, the tag, and then adding the twine bow through it. And I'll pin that off. I'll do the same on the other one. And then I'm going to glue the little button right kind of next to the safety pin there on both of these. All right, here's what they look like. Those are both ready for later. And then I'm going to glue this little burlap thing right over that Excelsior, and I'm going to glue the wood star in, kind of tuck it in behind here on both of them. Get this little burlap thing on. It looks cute. And then I'm going to take like 3 of those little pods on each one and just kind of stack them in there, laying them a little bit sideways and cutesy. All right, get the second one done here. You can add, of course, or subtract, whatever you want on there. Cute. And then here's where I've decided I want just a tiny bit. So I do a little bit on the button of the cinnamon and the salt and the glitter mixture. A little bit up top. Just a tiny. You don't want too much. And then a tiny bit just kind of right across those putka pods so that it, you know, blends in. Like there was a reason we did that on the top, you know. So it blends from top to bottom, and now it's time to glue one caramel pumpkin to one stand. Then we'll glue the other caramel pumpkin to its stand, and then it's time to get our bow ensemble on. So there wasn't really a secure place underneath to kind of fasten this, but luckily pumpkins have segments, and I don't know how I did it, but I ended up, right here is going to be an arrow, ended up with the perfect little void where a segment is right in the front, and that's where I'm going to kind of glue and push my knot into, so it's all nice and secure. Total luck of the draw. Total luck, or luck of the creation. And then, of course, on this one, there is the little void right there. And then once I glue these on, that makes this Lindified project complete. So I hope you enjoyed both of these projects today. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which project was your favorite. I think I love both of these equally because I love the cuteness of, you know, the candied caramel pumpkin, but then I love just kind of the beauty of the pumpkin on the bouquet of flowers, and I especially love that stem made from the collar of a coat. You can't beat that option, right? Please give this video a thumbs up because it really helps my channel to grow. And if you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. Now, before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. I am confident in thought that we need to allow our minds to choose to trust in what Jesus has for us. If we don't place our trust in God, then we are deemed helpless in all we do. We do not have control over the events in our lives, even though we think we do. But when unexpected things come our way, there is no other evident way to cope than to place our trust in what Jesus has for us. It's not our way, but His way. We often think we have the power to elect positions of those we need to help us in what we're going through, but God is the one who orchestrates who is available to help us along our path. We can't force things to happen by what earthly things we choose or don't choose. So with faith, we must choose God to set the cornerstone in place. If we don't have hope in what God has for us, then things will not line up correctly and things will not flow as they should when we try to insert our own strength. We must allow the Spirit to bring things about. We must bend our knees and trust that God places all things in all positions for all times. It is not of ourselves, but of the mighty strength of Jesus. In submission, we must allow our hearts to look up and say, "You, God, are my King, and I place my trust in you." We must anticipate with hope that He has good plans for us. He knows the way, and He knows the direct path that will lead us to victory. He will carry us through to completion, but only if we choose to let go of our own control and choose to believe that God has all we need. So if we believe with faith in God, We bend a knee. We let it go. We believe in His power and might, and we choose to trust Him. He will take us there if we let Him. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.